As a brand storyteller in 2025, you are tasked with constantly and consistently putting out great content to a variety of social media platforms. But the platforms are always changing. The algorithm is always changing. Every week or every month, there's a new social media tool, or every week and every month, there's a new one about to be banned. So how do you stay ever present on your social media so that you can continue to connect with your audience in a way that drives your business? Well, luckily for you, that's exactly what we're going to talk about in today's episode. Welcome to the Storytelling Lab, where we break down the art and science of storytelling. My name is Bennett. I'm your host, and I'm a filmmaker and an author on a quest to understand how we can tell better stories so that we can do better work and make the world a better place. Each episode, I host one of the world's best storytellers to help you understand how to leverage storytelling to increase your sales, deepen your connections, and serve your audiences better. What's up, storytellers? Welcome back to the Storytelling Lab podcast. This is episode 188, and today my guest is Keenya Kelly. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story. When I was considering getting on to TikTok years ago, I had started working with people and coaching for storytelling, especially brand storytellers, and I had heard of TikTok. I had heard of Musical.ly, the predecessor. But I, like many others, like our guest today, was a little reticent, was a little curious, wasn't sure. So I watched. I was the voyeur, just watching, just scrolling, a little afraid to dip my toes into the TikTok water. And I was listening to Social Media Examiner with Michael Stelzner, and he had on this lady, Keenya Kelly, who at that time and still now is the queen of TikTok, and she understood how to make it a business using short form video. Now, that's what I was helping brands do from a documentary filmmaker's perspective, using short form video to connect with their audience using my filmmaking techniques. But when I saw her able to make a business out of it, not just creating content, not just creating trendy content that gets laughs or gets views, but really building a brand off of it, I said, okay, I think I can do this too. Fast forward 5 years, I think. Earlier this January, I was at PodFest in Orlando, Florida. Great time, great conference for any podcaster. And who do I run into but Keenya Kelly? And so I say, Keenya, oh my gosh, you helped me on my TikTok journey and yada, yada, yada. She is exactly who you meet on camera is exactly who you meet in real life. Bubbly personality, super warm and open, just gave me a big hug immediately and didn't know me yet. And I connected with her so fast. I had to have her on the show because I've been following her content for years. And let me tell you, she did not disappoint. Now, on this show, we often talk about the art of storytelling and certainly the science as well. And sometimes we talk about finding your voice and all the big picture strategy that has to happen first before you put out and put the tactics into play. And while, yes, this episode absolutely focuses on the big picture strategy of who you are as a brand, it is full of tactical advice that you can apply immediately. As soon as you're done listening to the episode, it will make you better at your social media content. Most importantly, we talk about her growth on TikTok up to 500,000 followers in the lens or through the perspective of the upcoming potential ban that we've heard so much about. Now, this has happened time and time again over the past couple of years. It got really close. In fact, it was banned for like a day in January, and here we come again in April 2025 with it seeming like it might happen again. But here's the point. When I asked Keenya about that in Orlando, when it was going to happen the next day or so, she said, I'll be all right, because she understands how to diversify her content and diversify her presence on many different platforms, but specifically driving them to her owned platform. That means her email list. How do you convert people? How do you use the top of the funnel of TikTok to gather views and attention and drive it down the funnel of engagement and ultimately to conversion? This is why this episode is so important about sharing your story on social media. It's not about just sharing your story for sharing your story's sake. It's how you build a brand and monetize your story. And I know that it's going to help you. So here's my conversation with Keenya Kelly, and I hope that you love it. Keenya, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Absolutely. Here we are again. We met officially in real life, in person, in March at Podfest. Shout out to Podfest. We were just talking about 3 months ago. Is in January, and talking about how fast that's gone. Here we are again. Let's jump right into it. On the verge of another potential TikTok ban, which is exactly where we were the week that we were together in Orlando. So that's a good point to just jump into, right?
Yeah.
I know that's kind of your, I don't want to say bread and butter, but that's your main platform, or it has been historically. Is that fair to say?
No, I'm just larger on
Large.
TikTok, but
Okay.
most of my money is made on Facebook and Instagram.
Well, we'll get into that because I have heard similar things. I definitely want to get into that as we move forward in the conversation. But your largest following, so we can claim it like that. So I wanted to learn a little bit about how that happened, because if I remember correctly, when you started, you told me a little bit about it. We talked about, I heard you with Michael Stelzner on Social Media Examiner, and I believe your story was pretty quick from when you finally took that leap to TikTok in terms of growth. Is that accurate?
No, I wouldn't say that it was, I guess 500,000 today. It wasn't like all of a sudden. It was people couldn't see me in the lab. They just saw when the explosion happened, you know?
Overnight success.
Right. It's like, it definitely was not overnight. I was definitely like a grandma trying to figure out the platform for a long time.
How long do you think you tested?
Oh my God, it was like a year.
Yeah.
Because we were in 2020 and nobody was talking about TikTok. I
Not
mean,
much.
especially at the beginning when I got on, and then when people got on there, they were just doing dance challenges. They weren't actually teaching how to create content on TikTok. So I had to figure out every button by myself.
Do you remember a part where you really started to see a gap that you could fill in that lack of, content?
Yeah, so it was probably towards the end of 2020. I started having this feeling of like, as people had heard me talking about it on my Facebook and Instagram accounts, but people didn't really see the value. And I had gone viral a bunch of times, and I started seeing it. And because I could see what was happening and nobody was talking about it, I was like, oh, this is about to be something. And that's when, at the end of that year, I put down my design agency and went full speed into video.
When did you hit the hundreds of thousands of followers?
I think I hit my first 100,000 at the end of 2020, maybe the beginning of 2021.
Okay.
And then I just poured gasoline on everything that I was doing. And I think I actually set at like 300,000 for a long time, and then 400,000 for like probably a year and a half. I couldn't get beyond that. And that was mainly because some of my content that had gone viral, it was because of me as a person, not me as a social media person. So my followers would grow and then decline. So it was constantly that churn of like growing and dying until all the wrong people left. Then that's when I was able to cross the 500,000 a mark.
So I was going to ask anyway, what were those first few viral pieces of content? What were they pertaining to?
Yeah, they're really stupid. So the first time I ever went viral, there was a white girl who had gone to a black church. Funny thing, she did not get canceled, and it wasn't racist, but she didn't know what to expect at a black church, and she got quite the experience. And because black people are very expressive in church.
No.
And so she was like showcasing what people were doing at the black church.
Oh my God.
And I reacted to it in a positive way. And because I was so positive to her, people really, really loved the video. And I gained like 47,000 followers in like a couple days. Then I had learned a creative way to strain a pot. Really stupid, really dumb,
That's
but
so
it went
funny.
super viral. And then I really did a really dumb video with my cat. So it was kind of like, it was just a creative content creator type content that went viral.
And
But my
and
first business video was about making $200,000 after going through divorce. And my book sold like crazy.
yeah, I mean, financial success stories are always helpful. So
Yeah.
let's stay there in the virality or the viral posts that aren't necessarily aligned with your brand topic. Is that something that could be like good and bad? Like it's good because you go viral, but bad because it's not your right audience? Or do you view it as all good or all bad? Like how do you, for someone else, if that similar thing happened to, what would you advise them?
So if I know today what I know now,
Right.
what I probably would have done is like, because you still can create content and go viral for who you are as a person,
Right.
but you're definitely going to reach your audience and then not your audience. So one of the things that I like to do now with me and my clients is I will do a business piece of content first, and then I will put out that content that I feel like has virality second, and right behind it I will immediately put another piece of business content. And so then I know that that potential viral video is going to go viral over time. And then when people are seeing that, they're going to come back to my profile. And what I want them to come back to my profile to is my business content. So it's kind of like I call it the sandwich method, where it's like I got my business on the outside and then the viral content as the meat on the inside. And only the right people actually hit follow when they come to my account and go, oh, this is what she's about, follow, and not randomness.
Got it. I saw something recently, not from you, but from someone else, and it was more addressing brands and not necessarily solo creators, but I thought it had value. And it was like you're starting to see a trend now where brands are creating multiple accounts. So it might be ABC Corporation comedy account, ABC Corporation man on the street interviews, ABC Corporation product features, whatever. Is that something that you recommend? Do you have multiple accounts?
I don't have multiple accounts as Keenya Kelly. So like Keenya Kelly, the social media consultant, has one main account. Keenya Kelly brand, which is me, Houston content, dating, all that. I have a different account there. But when I look at, let's just say Duolingo, we all love Duolingo on TikTok, right? I see the value in a brand saying, hey, here is our main corporate, what we do, and then here's our comedy, because that really allows the brand to try different things. It allows the brand to be more creative. If they want to do more unhinged content, which is happening a lot for brands are being a little bit more unhinged with their content. It really gives them the opportunity to do those things. It also gives them a chance to test things before they make it on their official content. And then, we all run ads. And so they're able to test all that in those secondary accounts. So if you have the bandwidth to manage all those accounts, I say 100%, because it just allows for so much creativity and freedom.
What's the Keenya Kelly brand account? What does that focus on again?
Yeah, so it's just Kenya as a person. I talk about like dating in Houston, making friends, menopause, hair, whatever. And it just, for me, I created it because I wanted a creative outlet that allowed me to be more me on social media, because there's so much money that you can make as a creator, but I'm not making money as a creator as much on my business account because I'm locked into the social media person.
Right.
But the person over there is being sponsored by this protein person, this jewelry brand, this hair care, this makeup, all this stuff. And then I can partner that with, hey, I have this other account. And when I speak at a conference, I can get them to sponsor me even more for both accounts.
That's smart. Yeah, I can definitely see that because my space is storytelling, so it's kind of limited, right? I mean, intentionally so. It's a niche, but I can absolutely see the opportunity in just allowing yourself to be yourself. And I certainly understand the limits that it brings when you're Rain, the storytelling coach, and I can't just say everything that I might want to say or just doesn't land because it's not the audience. I'm a filmmaker by background, and I see this a lot with people in that space. Each project that they have, maybe for a musician it could be an album, but each film that someone has, oftentimes people will create their own accounts for that project. What are your thoughts on that? I'm not sure if you've ever thought about that. So it is another brand, but it's certainly tied to me, the creator, as well. Is it better for me to push and market that book or that film through Rain Bennett or through the project having its own channel?
I think it really depends on the intentionality of it. It's kind of like, you have you and then you have your podcast. Obviously, it takes you a lot less time for you to focus on, let's let it be in just your podcast on one place. But if, like, I've seen a lot of coaches who have their personal brands and then they have an account for their actual product or what have you. I could see the benefit of that, but for the most part, I see where people fall off, where they don't stay as consistent with that niche because people aren't that interested in it. Now, granted, something like Netflix has a main account, right? And the TV series called You, which is an insane series, could have its own, but it's much more beneficial if they have it on Netflix. Now, if they if they're strategically and said, okay, with You, we're going to make this a series on TikTok. We're going to turn it into a podcast. We're going to turn it into more things. Like if they have the foresight for where they want it to go, then yeah, 100%. It makes sense to go there, you know? Yeah. So like right now, Keenya Kelly brand is, I accidentally became famous in Houston. It wasn't on purpose, but it just been happening overnight. Because I decided that I wanted to make friends and I was using TikTok to do it. And the short version is I was going to host a meetup with 50 people, 1,200 people signed up. And I had this event with like over 400 people over the course of 2 days. And then it's been happening over and over and over again. And I've asked myself, do I turn that community into another account on TikTok? And I'm like, no, it's just too much work. I keep doing what I am doing and then funnel them into my email list and into a WhatsApp group because it's just too much work on the other end.
So that makes sense. Going back to my example, it sounds like I'll paraphrase and hope this is the gist of it. It's like if that project has the potential to be a brand, mm-hmm. it makes more sense for it to have its own space. Like you said, like the Storytelling Lab, I just recently did that, have its own channels, but it's its own thing, right? It is a show that exists. Mm-hmm. Granted, I am the creator of it, and I did have them together. But if a film had opportunities for a whole business and not just that project, it might make more sense in that case. It sounds kind of like what you're saying. Like you said, the companion book or podcast that might go with it. Now you're talking about a living, breathing thing and not just one project.
Yeah, for sure. That's like even your Storytelling Lab. It's like if you really thought about it and said, okay, I want this to live on even when I'm gone. Mm-hmm. How can it live on? Okay, well, I can go ahead now and start bringing people onto my show and doing extensions of it. Like if you are already saying to yourself, for the future, this is something I want to sell and I want to have multiple faces, then you can go ahead and do that. Like with the community that I have, I named it and I grabbed the TikTok handle for it because I'm like, just in case something happens with it, I might say, you know what? I can start having content be created by somebody else in the community and we can grow that and eventually we can sell it in 5, 10 or 20 years if that's what I want to do. So right now that's not my intent, but I know that things change. So I was like, let me just grab the name, the domain, the handle, just in case.
Very smart. Very smart. Speaking of things always change, and that's kind of how I kicked off the conversations last time. Well, when we were together, it was like a day before the TikTok ban that lasted a day or 12 hours. And I think here we are again. I kind of tuned it out because that conversation's come up so much in the past 2 years. But the thing that you said to me, and I quote, was like, I was like, well, how do you feel about all this? We ran into each other by the restaurant and you're like, I'll be okay. And you just said it not flippantly, but like confidently, securely. Mm-hmm. And I think about it as like, well, if your biggest following is there, 500K or whatever it is, why do you have that feeling? What have you set up in your system, in your business, in terms of adaptability, in terms of longevity, that makes you just so easily in a second be like, if TikTok goes away today and it's what helped build my business, I'll be okay.
Mm-hmm. The reason is because, one, I'm a marketer, right? And so I understand that platforms come and go. And if TikTok was to go away, I still have an email list of over 15,000 people, 35,000 people on Instagram, 35 on Facebook, almost 8,000 on YouTube, so on and so on. But more importantly, I said to myself, if TikTok goes away, just another app's going to come up. And then my job is to decide if I want to go to a new app or I want to double down on the current apps that are already there, right? And I was just like, well, if it goes away, I'm going to focus on YouTube Shorts. Why? A lot of people my age are not focused on YouTube Shorts, but YouTube would be very, very, very interested in someone like me, a marketer, and someone in their 40s becoming the face of YouTube Shorts because it will drive more people like me to the platform. So I was just like, I'm not worried about it. Now, was I excited about a potential ban? No. I was like, I do not want it to happen because I don't want to put that energy in over again the way that I did with TikTok. But I was like, I can do it because I've done it before.
And now I'm assuming that, you would be better, faster at it. You've done it before. You'd still have to experiment. It's a different platform, but
Yeah.
it maybe wouldn't be as, tall of a mountain to climb to relearn a new
Right.
platform. Yeah, and I know you started off like in the Periscope days, right?
Yeah.
In that true. So you've always been there, and you've kind of evolved with the platforms, and it's saying a lot. How important is it to have that adaptability and be able to say, like, okay, if this one does go away, I'm just going to keep going to the next thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I grew up in the world of network marketing. There's like a picture behind me, like on stage of like 12,000 people. And back when I was reading all those books, one of the things that I'll never forget I read was either you're growing or you're dying. And so when I think about growing and dying, that means being innovative, being willing to adapt and change and try something different, you know? And so I think that in everything that we do, whether it is business, it's marketing, or it's podcasting, we have to be open to how things change and be willing to do things early. So it's kind of like right now we're doing a podcast and a video podcast, but there are so many people who are still resisting doing video, and they don't realize how much they're holding themselves back. If they would do video and put it on Spotify, put it on YouTube, how much it would help them to actually grow their show. And so I think that the people who have the most success in the world are the ones that are open to change, willing to adapt, and are always improving, right? It's not fun to always change. You just learned the Instagram algorithm. Really, we really have to learn it again. Really, Mark, really, Adam Waziri, but it's like, it is what it is. And it's like, we can resist the change and the innovation, or we can just go with it. It sucks, but guess what? We can't control it.
Speaking of the network marketing, it gets a lot of flack, we'll say right? Okay, you're laughing, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I don't want to focus on that. I want to say, like, despite that, I know a lot of people that have come from that space and had success in that space and out of that space, like moving past it. So what are other things besides what you just outlined for us that you learn, skills, approaches, etc., that help you do what you do now? Because I think there is a lot of value in that style of marketing, despite the not the connotation, but just the perception of it.
For sure. So I am a completely different person than who I was in 2002 when I got recruited. I cursed like a sailor. I was so negative. There was so much about me because of my environment that I grew up in, and getting involved in that company and having a really good sponsor, mentor, he made me read books. He told me he was not going to work with me unless I read books. And so my outlook on life completely changed. How I process information completely changed, right? Like, I also would never have gotten in front of a room and spoken to anyone, let alone being on video. But in network marketing, you do these things called home parties. And back then, he was doing all my home parties, flying in for home parties. And one day he was just like, today, I'm going to teach you how to get up in front of the room. You would have thought I had gotten a ghost. I mean, it was the worst day of my life. But when I look at me today, my number one favorite thing is public speaking. Oh my God. If you give me the microphone, I turn into a completely different person. You are sitting there like, what is it's a whole entertainment show that it's happening when I get the microphone, and I really, really, really enjoy it. But it's because they pulled out of me what was already in there that I didn't know was there, to get on video. Well, first of all, to do live stream on Periscope, because that was like death, because you're live and anything could happen. But all the resilience and all the things that I had grown up in network marketing is what made me say, the worst thing that could happen is that I faint on live stream, and the best thing that happens is that I build an online business, right? And so then when I started thinking about TikTok marketing, I was like, the worst thing that could happen is that I waste my entire year of 2020 and fight with everybody on Facebook, or the best thing, I might actually blow up. And so I just keep having that same attitude about everything that I'm doing. That's like with the event here in Houston. I said, the worst thing that could happen is that nobody comes to this meetup. The best thing that happens is that people actually show up. 1,200 people signed up. Now, 600 people have just paid for the next event next week. There's 500 people in the WhatsApp group, sponsors, all this stuff is happening. Why? Because I just keep saying the worst thing that can happen is the best thing that can happen.
That worst case scenario exercise in your head is so valuable. I've done a very similar thing with like a big life decision, and it's just like, well, let's look at it. I mean, the absolute worst case scenario ain't that bad in the big scheme of things. So what are you waiting for? It's a great way to frame those big questions that we have. How do you avoid, what's your recipe for avoiding burnout? I think that's something a lot of creators are facing, especially when they're on multiple platforms. You just passed out as I asked you. So yeah, like, do you have a recipe for that? Like, how do you address that?
You know, it's a very challenging situation, right? So twofold. One, if somebody has a full-time job and they're doing content creation part-time, it's really hard for them because you've got the 9 to 5 and you got to be fully present there. And then your time off from work and on weekends, you're being a content creator. So the person has got this whole spin that is happening 24/7, 7 days a week. Now, the person who's working full-time, it's even harder. I feel like it's even harder for them because when you run a business, you're not just doing a day job 9 to 5, you're running the entire operation. And so it is very, very challenging to do. One of the biggest mistakes that I made was not hiring a social media manager sooner. Okay, I wish I would have just taken a salary off of me and hired a social media manager, meaning somebody who's in their 20s, somebody who loves social media, who loves video, who loves CapCut, that has the ability to see creative ideas and can edit videos for you without you, right? So my number one resolution for a person that is building as a content creator or full-time, whatever it is you're doing, is you've got to hire a part-time VA stat. Okay, because we get so burnt out because we're doing so much. Like the run a business, to do a full-time job and be a creator, it's just a lot, right? Plus you're intaking all the information with social media. You're comparing yourselves to everybody. There's all this stuff that is happening that doesn't typically happen when you're not a content creator, right? So you've got to get an extension of yourself. Somebody has to come in and help you. That's like just this morning when I was getting dressed, I said, because like all the time I'll go to events and I will film the event and then I'll come home and I won't ever edit and post the content because now I got to get back to business. And I just had this morning, I said, oh, I am going to create a tool in my system and I'm going to give it to my social media manager and say, hey, every time I post an event or go to an event, immediately that night, I'm going to upload stuff and I'm going to write to you what happened that day. And the first thing when you come into work, I want you to edit this, add music and all that. Let me see it. And then we're going to post it. That way the content still goes out and I'm not trying to stress to get it done. But the only way I can have that happen is that I hired a 22-year-old fresh out of college, obsessed with Instagram, obsessed with she's obsessed with these kind of things. And I can give it to that person, right? But then the second thing to avoid burnout is you've got to figure out what's most important to you. I don't think enough people really have like core values for themselves and for their business. I didn't until I joined an organization that was talking about it. And one of our core values in my company is work-life balance. And I'm like, people always say balance is not attainable. They're lying. That's a lie. They haven't gone to therapy. That's why they believe that, right? I believe balance is attainable. It doesn't mean it's always going to be 50-50, but it means that when you look at work, you say to yourself, I am setting aside time for me. On Saturdays, I'm out, I'm going to brunches, I'm out here going to bars, trying to meet men that want to date me. You know, I'm meeting men at church. I'm like, because I'm single and I'm trying to get in my married girl era, right? How is that going to happen? I can't stay on the road, right? I got to be in the vicinity where men who are interested in women like me, if you're watching this, hit me up. Just in case, you are a man with men on the show. Anyway, so it's like, so I have to create that kind of space and give myself that core value. And so I think more people have to be honest with themselves about what is it that they're feeling. A lot of times what they're feeling is the fear of, if I don't do all this stuff, I won't be successful. Or we're comparing everything to everybody else. And we're not actually, I believe in God, but we're not really trusting God to actually help us with what it is that is happening, right? We have this fear that if we don't do it, it won't get done. I dealt with that for so long. And I had to start going, if this dude created the whole world, I'm pretty sure he can help me make some money. Why don't I ask him to help me? And then when I did that, he started to help me.
So much of what you said, I want to comment on. First of all, I love that you included, just in terms of that basket of potential burnout starters, the input, like watching things, learning things, comparing yourself to others. Like, it's not just the creating and the output and execution that creates the burnout. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I don't think anyone has, and I don't know that I've necessarily put it in those words, but I definitely resonated with it, because I do spend time scrolling. Yeah. Half of that is just doom, or like scrolling mindlessly, and the other half is studying, like, ooh, look at this trend, or ooh, look at this perspective, yada, yada, yada. And I certainly spend time comparing myself to others, like, who's this storyteller? It's so bad. I also, to your point about the event recap, I still have in my drafts the Podfest recap.
Me too.
Girl, I made it like the next, started it, I should say. I mean, I put all my things in a TikTok draft. It never got made, and now it almost seems, I think it would still be okay. I've done this before where you release something late, but it still works. But it's like, it almost doesn't make sense. If it's that week after where it's still hot and everybody are talking about it, then yeah, but now it's months later. It seems silly to do it. So, God, that one hit me square in the head. Yeah, that would be really helpful. Absolutely.
You know, the cool thing about that is that the people who are going to watch that didn't even know what happened anyway. We know that it's old, but the people who are going to watch it, they didn't even know what happened. They're like, oh, you went where? What was what? And
that's what kind of helped out. I forget what the post was, but a very similar thing where I posted it way later than I anticipated, and it still worked. So that's the voice in my head's just quieted down.
For sure.
Looking at, I want to switch and kind of look at metrics right now. We're talking about juggling all of these platforms, and I know they all perform and behave differently. And we talked about adaptability over the years. One of the things that seems to change every month is the metrics that we should really like pay attention to. And it doesn't mean necessarily the analytics, because you also have your personal metrics of growth as a brand. So the big vague question is, what's the most important thing right now with content creation that we should focus on? But I also really want your perspective on this, because you're someone that's got like longevity in the game. You've built this brand around yourself. So it's not just like, ooh, focus on watch time or watch duration. It could also be, I don't know. I'll let you answer.
For sure. So whether you are a full-time content creator or you're a business owner, the number one thing I think that people need to look at is how many people are opting in. How many people are opting into your text system or opting into your email list? That's number one, hands down. Because if TikTok goes down, Instagram goes down, whomever does whatever, if everybody is opting into your newsletter or text system, you have so much control beyond any platform. That's number one. Like, I think a lot of content creators are starting to understand the value of developing an email list or a text system outside of the social platforms, because if they move from TikTok to Blue Sky or Twitter to Threads or whatever, they can send these one messages out saying, hey, I am now here in this place. Come and follow me there. And then boom, everybody can come and follow them there. So that's the first thing. The second thing is engagement, okay? Because on every single platform, what they want as a platform is they want people to stay on the platform longer, period. That is one of the reasons why Instagram launched 3-minute reels. They said, we'll never focus on long form. And then a couple of weeks later, it was like, we've got 3-minute reels. Why? Because they see the power of people staying on the platform longer than the 15-second video or what have you. TikTok, same thing. You can now upload a video up to 60 minutes on TikTok right now. And they're paying you double the amount of money in the creator rewards program if you not only create content that is longer than a minute, but high quality storytelling content. And so they're really putting a heavy emphasis on that. And you're getting paid more money on TikTok the more people engage in your content. And so if you want to have the biggest results with any content, it is all about getting people to engage. And yes, we all use chat bots to get people to comment, but if you can get people to actually start having conversations, what ends up happening is that you commented, this person commented back to that person commented back to that person. Now a whole thread of things are happening in the comment section in multiple different threads. And what that tells every single platform is that, guess what? People are really enjoying this. And then the third thing is watch time. Okay. TikTok is the one that's making it the clearest to us. It looks like that TikTok has a metric, but an analytics that says, here's how many people left after 2 seconds. Mm-hmm. Why would they specifically say 2 seconds? Because they're telling you very key metric. You want to get people to watch longer than 2 seconds of your content, right? And if you're not, you can see how many people are not doing that, and they're trying to give you tips on how to get people to watch longer. Why would they do that? Because they're telling you that the longer people watch your content, the better your content is going to perform. So they've got these features for a reason. We just kind of have to analyze it from their perspective.
I think, by the way, like side note, the move that TikTok made of like driving everybody to super short form, only to then reverse and say, psych, we're going to start doing long form to compete with YouTube. And now everyone's chasing them again. Like, it honestly is masterful. Like, as everybody went short form to follow them, everybody started creating shorts, and then they turned, and now everybody's like, oh, 3-minute reels.
Yeah. You know, but I think that I don't know TikTok obviously, but I'm like, I think that they realized no. So I think what happened in the pandemic is TikTok was doing something, and I don't think that they realized what could happen, because nobody expected the pandemic was going to happen, right, or whatever, or how people were going to respond to it. So I think that TikTok got caught in this wave of, oh shoot, what do we do now? Because TikTok was not ready for the business people, they were not ready for the marketers in 2020, and so I think that they saw the power of people come into the platform. And then I think that they saw that they weren't making as much money as they needed to make. And then I think that they also started going with the advertisers, like, where are the ads going to go? And because they were doing regular ads in the feed. And now they started to see, oh shoot, YouTube, you're able, the longer your video is, the more ad placement that could happen. And I think that happened in like 22 or 23 with TikTok. So I think that they had to make a huge hard pivot really quickly, but I think that they've done it pretty well.
Mm-hmm. So you were just talking about the main metrics to focus on. Mm-hmm. If I'm on multiple platforms, what do I focus on? What's your advice for monetization for me? I'm a creator, and I'm got presence on all these platforms, and I'd really like to be able to make some money.
Yeah, for sure. So number one, you're going to want to go to each of the platforms and determine what is their monetization. How do you get into their monetization programs? TikTok, for the creator rewards, is 10,000 followers. Instagram, I'm not sure all of what theirs is. And there's Reels, there's Threads, and there's Facebook Reels. But you're going to want to go ahead and try to get into their monetization programs. That's number one, because once you get in there, now you're in there. Then you want to get involved in their like the creator, like the brand. I think TikTok's new one is called TikTok One, where you can be reached out by brands. Instagram has it, YouTube has it, and Facebook has it. But then the third thing is you want to determine how you can start partnering with brands. Now, one of the things that creators think that they need is an agent. Well, you don't need an agent, not until you're bringing in at least $10,000 a month and you have way more brand deals than you can handle. Okay. But what I recommend is that you Google this, right? And you just type in influencer marketing agency, right? And I did this for a couple years, and it always pays out. So I have profiles set up in all these influencer marketing platforms, right? And so when this company comes along to that company and says, hey, we're looking for a 40-year-old Black woman with curly hair in Texas or in the US, when they put those filters in, King is going to pop up on everybody's radar, right? And so I think you should put your name in all those databases so that you have those opportunities. But the biggest one, I think that creators need to create paid products. Okay. And they may not have courses, but I think they need to have paid communities. Like, we look at someone like Kai Cenat. I just freaking love that kid. He's so funny, and his streams are just ridiculous. But I never knew who he was or Twitch was until now. but he's making millions of dollars per month streaming on Twitch. He got over 325,000 people to start paying $5 a month watching him stream on Twitch. And I think that if creators started creating some type of small payment subscription program that's like maybe $5 a month, these creators have like hundreds and thousands of followers, and they can give people real behind the scenes experiences with them. 1,000 people paying $5, 10,000, 100,000. Creators would be blown away by the people in their community that are willing to spend $5 a month to get behind the scenes type of experiences, and the amount of money that they will create is a lot, and their burnout would be a whole lot less, right? Their dependency on brand deals would be a lot less, and their negotiating power will be a lot higher, because they're like, well, you can't get me to do that for $5,000 because I can hit one post and I'm good to go in my own community, you know?
Absolutely. Everything that we're talking about seems to be just a different version of not putting all your eggs in one basket, like being diversified, right? Whether it's platform, whether it's the monetization strategy, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, not leaning in fully to one way just in case that source of income or revenue drops, in case that platform is banned in the US, whatever. It's funny. So I'm seeing that theme. And we've kind of leaned in towards where I'm going next. It's, you mentioned something earlier too about TikTok wasn't ready for the business people back in 2020 that they are now. Now we're starting to see this shift where artists or creators, influencers, whatever you want to call them, are now having to be, if they're going to have success, to become entrepreneurs, to become business people, which they aren't necessarily, at least by, historically, or at least by their experience. They are artists of some type, or comedians, or they're creating content. But to have success now, when you have pros coming into the game, the game is changing, the platforms are shifting. How does one, this is another kind of big picture question, but I know that you'll do fine with it. Like, how do people walk that path of transitioning from an individual creator or artist to now you're an entrepreneur?
Mm-hmm. So it reminds me of the transition from having a full-time job to being a full-time entrepreneur. You literally go back to grade school, right? And one of the things I always tell people that are leaving their jobs or creators is like, you've got to give yourself permission to be terrible at being a business owner, because you don't know what you're doing. And if you can admit that to yourself, that you don't know what you're doing, you've crossed the first battle. Right? That's the first thing a creator has to acknowledge, is that they don't know what they're doing when it comes to be a business owner. Okay. Then you have to be willing to invest in someone to help you cross all the steps, right? So for example, I do what I do and I create what I create, but I had some gaps in my business, especially with my marketing funnel. And so I invested in a high ticket group of people who make millions of dollars with funnels. Now, did that cost me a lot? Yes. But how much money is that going to make me? A lot, because I know where I was going, but I didn't know how to get there. And so creators have to look and go, okay, who is a business person but also understands content creators' life that we can invest in to take us to where we're trying to go, right? Because if you're in grade school and your content creator business is as if you graduated from college, but your entrepreneurship is just like there's a huge gap. If you are investing in someone on a monthly basis, or let's just say a 90-day journey, then what is going to happen is all those mistakes that you are making or could make, you're going to skip so many of them, because somebody's going to keep you from missing those mistakes. For example, you've got Charli D'Amelio. Like, Charli D'Amelio was the number one person on TikTok, right? And she was growing so fast, and her mom and them didn't know what to do. Gary Vee got a hold to her early on.
I remember that.
Yeah, and Gary Vee, I guess, I don't know exactly what he did with them. I'm sure he had some kind of deal. But they prepared them and they did all these things with them to where today Charli D'Amelio she's always on the top creator Forbes list. Because why? It's not because she's the smartest person with her money. It's because early on, her and her family made a decision to invest in someone like a Gary Vee to help them to do what it is that they're trying to do. You know, it's like you got someone like a Tabitha Brown who has exploded, but one of the good things about Tabitha Brown is she invested in the right people to help take her on the journey that she needed to be on, helping fill that gap. So a content creator, I would say, don't just choose somebody just because it all sounds good and it's glittery. You want to actually like spend some time. Like, don't feel like you can't offend people, but you want to ask people like, hey, I'm thinking about working with you. I need help with this and this. Can you share with me testimonials of some of your clients that you've helped? Because it all sounds good. When the pitch sounds good, everybody's good salespeople, but you got to make sure that this person has the temperament you're interested in, this person has the values you're interested in, and they have the track record so they can help you along. Because everybody can say they can help a creator. I get it. I tell creators all the time, like, I can help you build an online business for sure, but if you're trying to get more brand deals, that's not what I do. If you're an artist trying to get your music on TikTok, that's not what I do. I will tell them, no. So you've got to have the right people that are honest and helping you, and they can actually take you to where you want to go.
One of the words / concepts that you mentioned that I think for beginners sometimes is like vague or just opaque, maybe, is the concept of the funnel. Mm-hmm. So without going into any more detail than you're comfortable with, can you explain to the folks listening like what exactly that means? You're a content creator, you're trying to monetize, you're trying to build a brand. What is your funnel strategy?
For sure. So one of the things I have is that I understand that I sell digital courses, consulting, and things of that nature, and that I use a lot of organic marketing to do it. So my job is to go, okay, how can I create content that connects directly to who my audience is, and what is it in my, like, what is it that my audience is struggling with? So for example, my audience struggles with creating good videos or learning how to grow on Instagram or grow on TikTok. But I also understand they don't know how the structure of how to do a great video. And so I created a giveaway. It's called 150 Viral Hooks, and it has 150 ways to start off a video to stop and get your audience attention. So people, that's the first thing. They're able to opt in to that 75 viral hooks. Okay. Once they get those 75 viral hooks, I've got something that they are able to purchase that's going to be for $10, right? It's a great thing that they can get for $10. So instead of me trying to sell that on Instagram, I'm promoting the hooks, and then the hooks connects to that $10 offer. And then you may say, oh yeah, I'll take that. So then when you click to get that offer, now it's going to offer you something else, something even better. And then it'll keep going until you decide, I just want this. I don't want those things. Okay, perfect. So you went from just getting the free thing to actually purchasing something for paid. But then our email marketing nurture sequence, it goes out every day, every week, every month. It continues to coach you and nurture you and things of that nature to then selling you another product down the line, right? And so that's kind of what that is. So as a creator, yours may be join my email list to get the behind the scenes of my trip to whatever, right? Or to get, I don't know what yours may be. And then now you're trying to offer them a $5 product. You created something beautiful or whatever, and they purchase that product. But then you may also say, okay, if you like this, you may also want to be in my private Patreon community. It's only $4 per month. And here on Patreon, I do this, and this. So they initially opted in for that free thing. Now they pay for that $5 product, and now they're saying, oh, I'm gonna subscribe to your Patreon, and all you did was promote the free thing.
Got it. You mentioned you didn't use this term mentor or mentorship, but you mentioned finding someone you can invest in, like we talked about Gary Vee and a few others. I'm wondering, who were some of the people in your journey that helped unlock different stages for you, or helped?
So the first person I invested in was somebody I actually could have just called on the phone. I had her phone number, and I was just like, nope, that's not how this goes. I'm like, if I'm going to value her and show her that I value her, I'm going to pay for an hour of her time. So her name was Nicole Walters. Back in 2016, I was watching her crush it on Periscope. And I was like, girl, what are you doing? And so she was the one that told me that Keenya Kelly was a brand, that I was bigger than my network marketing company. And I was having a hard time connecting with that. But then I invested in a coach. I won't name her because I don't recommend her. But then through that coaching program, I realized I was learning online marketing, and I needed video marketing teaching. And so I invested in Chalene Johnson's course called Marketing Impact Academy Live. That changed everything because I learned a lot from the course. I had success with the course. I became a testimonial. And I attended one of her conferences, and she was asking for testimonials. I ended up with my face plastered all over her conference for like 10 minutes. They featured me. They created videos about me, and whatever, from something happened between them seeing that of me, where her and her husband followed me on Instagram. From that moment on, they just started watching my journey and started like opening door here, door there, door here, door there. When I was blowing up on TikTok, I really wanted to be featured on Sean Cannell's podcast. I wanted to be featured on Mike Stelzner's podcast with Social Media Marketing World. And I mentioned it to her. And she said, before I mention you to them, I want you to create a video. And I want you to tag them in your video. So I created a reel and I tagged Sean talking about, here's what I do and I want to be featured. I tagged Stelzner. Neither one of them responded to me. They both went to her and said, who is this? Right? Because they could see we were friends. And then Stelzner, he went on his own journey and started studying me and emailed me a couple months later and said, we want to have you on my show. And that was it. That was it. Pat Flynn happened and this person and that, boom, boom. It's just like, but it was because I invested all that and did the work, right? Because it was like, it's one thing to invest. I just kept doing the work. And I have this thing where I tell people is that I'm going to pitch you, but I'm going to be so beautiful that you cannot deny me. And I'm not talking about my face. You see my pitch and you're like, when you click and you go, who is that? That you cannot deny me. And I tell all my clients, be so undeniable that people cannot deny it. That all they want to do is have you on and tell their friends about you.
Mm. You said something earlier about like you're a different person on stage. But I honestly would push back against that a little bit since I've met you. You know, I think that I get what you're saying. It's like an amplified version. Yeah. But I see you as very authentic. I know that term's well overused, but like you're yourself. Like the brand that we see on video is exactly who I met and hung out with in Orlando.
Pretty much.
Right?
Yes.
Right. And I love that. And it's also, I don't want to use the word that makes things easier, but it's like you don't have to fake the funk at all or like make a persona. You're just yourself. And that does make it easier in a sense. You still got to execute, but to show up and be yourself. So, and it's very clear that you're, just even the way we talk now, you're very passionate, you're very energetic and
thank you.
Outgoing. So it's clear you're passionate about what you do. My question is, what are the things in your line of work? What are the moments where your heart is really like lit on fire? Like what is it where that you get the most fulfillment from?
Man. Mine is, it isn't more so what I do social media, is what happens with a person when a person gets unlocked beyond what they thought. So outside of work, I'm a minister. So when like most people, if they come over to my house and they're here with me for an hour, about the 30-minute mark, they are bawling them eyes out. And I'm not trying to do it to them. They're doing it to themselves because they're asking me questions and I just start showing up and then I make them kind of show up. So I love it when whether it's on stage or it's one-to-one or in a group coaching program, and I am able to ask a person what's going on with them. And I'm able to go like, for example, I had a client who she does interior design and she was in my program and I was like, is anybody struggling? And she was bold enough to say, I'm struggling. I keep getting appointments booked and then just cancels the last minute. It's really affecting my business. And then instead of just not going in on it, I said, well, what's going on? Like, who are you talking to? And we uncovered she was talking to the wrong people. They couldn't afford her. And I'm like, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to do this, this, and this, and this Facebook group, and come back next week and tell us what happened. The next week, she is going bananas. She is so busy, all the right people. She enters into this contest that I'm a part of where you can win $10,000 and get your brand rebranded by Vistaprint. Well, she wins the contest. She wins $10,000, gets a full rebrand, gets featured on HGTV, and she's breaking down. And why? only because I spent a little bit of time saying, what is going on? How can I help you get to the root of you, your business, your client? And you watch all of what could come out, because all I did was unlock it, and the person flourishes. And it's like, that's the greatest thing when you can see that happen. Like one of my clients, Mercedes, she's a mystery shopper, and she had made $20,000 in a year in her business before she met me. I unlocked one little thing. She made $20,000 in 7 days. She made $2 million in her business already. And just recently, she made $20,000 in 24 hours with the same one strategy. And I'm like, unlocked.
Big time.
Crazy.
You also, strike me as a person who's kind of like always moving, always going, looking for the next thing. Like you're energetic again, and not just outgoing, but like you seem to be everywhere all at once. And I'm sure you have a infrastructure and a system set up to be able to do that. But creator to creator, I'm wondering, and I struggle with this at times. Do you find yourself ever able to like look back and just genuinely be proud of yourself and be grateful? Like, do you have those moments, or do you have a system for those feelings?
Yeah, for sure. So a year ago, I was watching somebody on Instagram, and she talked about how every night before she goes to bed, she tells herself 5 things she did well that day.
Nice.
And I had never done that. I had gone from thing to thing to thing to day to day to day.
Right.
And so I started when I lay down at night and I put on my little eye mask and to count myself back to go to sleep. I started just walking myself through the day. Okay, today I did this well, and today I did this well. And it makes me cry when I'm thinking about it. I'm saying it right now because I'm like, I'm watching my own progression of, here's the things that I'm doing well. I could have did this, but I did this. I could have did this, but I did this. Or when I gave a talk, or I'm like literally giving myself like the kudos that I need. And so some of it is, yes, I did this thing on stage, but some of it also is, I could have completely popped off on that girl, and I did not. Because I know me, I can be very, I'm very happy, but I also can be very, direct and brutal,
Sure, yeah.
And I praise myself and go, girl, look what you did. Today in therapy, you said all this, and this, and then this happened, and that thing that you've been putting on for 6 months, you finally did it today. And I just say these things to myself. And then I also journal in the morning. And because I'm like, I can't rely on anybody giving me that encouragement or that validation. Somebody will come along and do that, but I'm like, if I learn how to do it myself, I get it all the time. Like, so sometimes I'm going around the house and I'm like, I'll start thinking about something bad or whatever, and I can also talk and say, girl, no, and sometimes I'll say it out loud, and I'm like, girl, you could have did this, but you did that. And you could have did this, but you did that. And it literally is like, I'm giving myself what I need. And I never used to do that. And it's so life-giving, because like I deal with a lot of people, when we work with, online and all, it's a lot of people. So people are always taking, and I'm like, okay, I've got to learn how to give what I need to myself. And so I've been learning that through those talks.
It's so good. And I'm so glad I asked that. I wasn't going to, because it's not necessarily what we're talking about, but it's really important for people who are trying to build a business off of this. And, you're right that we can't rely on other people. It happens, as you said, from time to time, but like if you don't have a system for it, it's not enough to keep that cup filled. I got a little one yesterday about the show from someone who I didn't know, and that feels amazing, but I don't know when that'll come again. And if you try to depend on that, you're not going to have it every day. So I think it's really important that you set up a system to do that, because it's real easy to get bogged down with the other thoughts, right? Of just like, I got to do this. Not even just bad thoughts, just like the stressful, thoughts of like all the things you have to do. So last question, we've talked a lot today about adapting, not having all your eggs in one basket, et cetera, et cetera. It's a crazy tumultuous time right now in technology. But not just that. I mean, it's 5 years now past when you really went hard on TikTok. I'm wondering, what are you focused on in the near future? What pivots do you think you might have to make? What are your eyes on right now in terms of having to adjust your game at all, or either double down?
For sure. So I've been saying this for the last maybe 90 days or so.
Okay.
That a couple things. One, we are doubling down on better editing in my videos. So whether that is short videos or that is long videos, because there's more people creating content than ever. And I'm like, all right, how do I continue to get my eyeballs on me? It's not just what I teach, it's how my content shows up. So that's the first thing. I invested in an editor. Second thing is I know that President Trump and whomever is doing the deal with TikTok, that deal is coming, right? They've been saying it and it's been happening. We're seeing it in the news. And so I've been saying that I've been saying this actually for the last 4 years, that when that deal is made, the over 100 million people in America that are not on TikTok are coming to TikTok, right? So what happened in 2020 is going to happen again this year because they're going to say TikTok is safe. But not only that, no one in America has advertised TikTok but TikTok. And so the United States, or whatever they're going to say, whatever work President Trump has in with whoever is doing whatever, the government's got their hand in things. If it's Oracle, they're going to be putting so much money to driving people to TikTok. And so because of that, I have started creating a series of videos of all the basic things about TikTok. Here's how to do this. And here's how to do this. And here's how to do this. The people that are already there are like, this is dumb. But I already know what's coming, right? I already know I got to create some basic and advanced things for the people that are coming. I'm continuing, like just today, I posted on all of my socials and said, I'm looking to be a podcast guest on anyone to talk about this, this, and this, right? What am I doing? I am positioning myself for everyone that is like, who's the TikTok queen? Because they said that for years, and then now it's a lot of people. So now I'm like, hey, see me again, for that. But in addition to that, I'm not putting my eggs all in the TikTok basket. I'm doing my thing on Instagram. I have a mini course called Create on TikTok, a mini course called Create on Instagram. We are establishing a funnel for TikTok and a funnel for Instagram. That way I'm making all the money from all the platforms, right? And my social media manager, her and I are coming up with like a more detailed strategy on what our content looks like, what she's going to be doing with the content. And I'm getting ready to partner with someone to do my own online social media summit. Why am I doing that? Because I'm like, I don't want to go all around the country. I want to be in my house. And when this is done, I want to turn the lights off and I want to go outside and I want to be dating so I can meet my future husband, right? You know what I mean? I'm very intentional, so I'm like, I'm going to be the TikTok queen again, but I'm also going to be the Instagram queen.
Mm-hmm. Keenya Kelly, always one step ahead of the game.
You know what I'm saying?
Love it. And I love that this show has also become like a marketing opportunity for you in your dating life. I'm fully supportive.
Listen, I say it on stage. Like I was at every conference I go to. If the room is not all women, I say, and for the single men in the room, send me a DM. And people, the whole room loses it. And I'm like, no, I'm serious.
Right. But that's, oh my God, we could dissect that alone. Like, first of all, that just the little joke is enough to engage the crowd, right? But also you're serious about it, so it could yield results twice, right? That's the whole point. That's why you're so good at what you do. I love it. By the way, when online summit time comes, if there's any storytelling space, let me know.
Exactly.
I appreciate you so much. This has been so informative. I really appreciate it. Literally, I've been taking notes the whole time. And it's like almost every answer is just this great little soundbite that's immediately valuable. I appreciate it so much. It's a pleasure to meet you. I've talked about you before on the show. Like I told you, I was one of those ones that heard you with Michael Stelzner back in the day and helped me, get over that same hump of like, should I get on TikTok? So I appreciate you very much. And I'm glad to call you a friend now.
Yes. Thanks for having me. And I'll definitely have you on the summit too.
Ooh, sounds great. See you soon.
All right. Bye.
My name is Rain Bennett. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed that episode, do us a favor and subscribe to the podcast. If you're already a subscriber and you're enjoying the show, give us a review and let us know the value that you've gotten from it. We love to hear from our listeners and learn about the benefits that they're getting from the show. That's what fuels us, and that's what fuels the show. And if you've already subscribed and you've already reviewed it and you think there's someone else that would benefit from listening to this show, please share it with them. The more we grow, the more we can help you grow, and that's what we're here to do. Join us next time on the Storytelling Lab.